Gnoti seauton. That's Greek for know thyself. The ancient Greek philosophers and ancient teachers all knew the value of self-awareness, of discovering the true and sacred self. And today we have three categories of determiners, that is, ways in which we determine a person's identity. Of course, the first is our external appearance, our body type, our body itself, maybe even our title and our name, that which distinguishes us in terms of sight from all other things. And then our abilities, what we're able to accomplish, the education we're able to achieve, possessions, salary, socioeconomic status, all of these things, our abilities. And then lastly, the category of personality. And this is how we think, our faculties, how we process things, our knowledge, our insight, charisma, whether we're an introvert or extrovert, or even personality tests that you can take to determine what kind of personality you are. And many people lean on this in terms of their identity. But all of these things that I've mentioned are just additives to the true and sacred self. These ancient Greek philosophers and teachers all knew that the very best path for finding the true self is not so much finding what it is, but discovering what it is not. So think about this. All of those things, all of those additives, let's suppose they're all gone. What's left then? What's left when the outward appearance is marred or changed in some drastic way? What's left after that? What's left when the abilities have diminished and the accomplishment and the possessions are gone? What then? What's left of the identity? What's left when the faculties have been changed? The thinking, the personality, the demeanor. What's left when all of that's gone? Well, from the outside looking in, it would appear that the identity is lost when these things disappear. But from the inside looking out, there is this sacred true self within that's crying out saying, I'm still in here. And when the external appearance is marred or changed in some way, there's still an inner person crying out saying, hey, I'm still in here. And when the abilities have changed by virtue of some stroke or massive disability, there is something inside crying out to the outside saying, hey, I'm still in here. I haven't changed. And even when the personality, the faculties have changed, either by means of Alzheimer's or some kind of mental illness, there is someone inside crying out saying, hey, I'm still in here. There's still a true self here that's not based upon what I look like, what I do, or how I think, my knowledge. It's just me. As a culture today, we're always looking for authenticity, but I think we've reversed how authenticity comes about, and it's the reason why we see so much pretense in the world, and it's so hard to find authenticity. And that is that somehow we've begun to think that activity, the doing, the becoming is producing some kind of identity or authentic self. But actually that's reversed. The authentic self should be producing the activity. We should be living inside out, not outside in. I think it was Josh Waitzkin, who was an 8-time national chess champion, who made this profound statement. He said that if when we win, we are winners, then surely when we lose, we are losers. And of course, he's tongue-in-cheek here, trying to make the point that no, we're not winners because we win or losers because we lose. Because even the best winners lose, and even the worst losers win sometimes. Are you familiar with the phrase, a Cinderella story? This is a phrase in athletics or sports. When an athlete or a team, unlikely to succeed at all, against all odds, exceeds all expectations and wins. But of course, this comes from a fairy tale that we're probably all familiar with, Cinderella. And there's an anomaly in the story that maybe you've seen before. It has to do with the glass slipper. Do you remember the glass slipper? Remember, Cinderella is running from the masquerade ball because the clock is striking midnight. And as she's running away, she loses one of her shoes, the glass slipper. And the prince picks this up, and of course we know later in the story, uses this glass slipper to find his princess, to discover her identity. And we remember that Cinderella's fairy godmother had told her that at the strike of midnight, all of these nice things that she had given her would turn back into their original form. The beautiful white carriage that she arrived in would go back to being a pumpkin. These beautiful white stallion pulling that carriage would go back to being little white mice. And of course her outfit for the masquerade ball, the beautiful dress, would go back to its original form as the rags. I think that's the way it went. But as she left and the clock struck midnight, the glass slipper remained the same. I have a theory for why the glass slipper did not return to its original state. We have to go back to the beginning of the story, where Cinderella is victimized, rejected, and abused by her stepmother and stepsisters. And probably after years of this abuse, maybe Cinderella became accustomed to certain self-describing words like incapable, ugly, dumb, awkward. Because the victim mindset believes that the past is more powerful than the present. But when the fairy godmother shows up, she changes Cinderella's life experience from one of victimization to vindication. How incredible the sense of security and joy that comes from having nice things. But when that joy is predicated upon its opposite, like victimization or rejection, then it could only ever be a kind of front to a back, a top to a bottom, bound inseparably to its opposite. Inevitably, that kind of joy can only be a mirror image of pain. That kind of security can only be a mirror image to vulnerability and fear. And when the clock strikes midnight, all of these outer ingredients to our identity will fade away. And whether it's in our dreams at night or through all of the intrusive thoughts throughout the day, suddenly we are faced with the southern darkness to our northern light. But something magical is happening here. The reason the glass slipper did not go back to its original form is because it represents something that was true all along, not an opposite, not something that depends upon an opposite in order to exist. This very shoe is the shoe the prince used to find his true love. This transparent shoe was used to reveal a princess in rags. Yes, Cinderella, without her beautiful dress, without her fancy carriage, or her glorious stallions to pull it, is still as she always was, a beautiful, smart, and graceful princess. There's a good in the world that has no opposite. There's a happiness that doesn't depend upon what happens. And there's a you that doesn't depend on what you have or have not done. And there's a you that doesn't depend upon what you have or have not acquired. And when we find that epicenter, that deep, deep part of us, that sacred aspect of us or essence, and we live from there outward, it's then that we find our own personal peace.